I never thought I would find myself here, piecing together the fragments of my shattered trust. It all started with a dinner, a seemingly innocuous evening that would unravel the fabric of my marriage. Emily and I had been married for 7 years, and I thought I knew her like the back of my hand. She was my rock, my confidant, and my best friend. Or so I thought. That night, I had to work late at the office. It wasn't uncommon in my line of work, but I always made an effort to come home early when I could. As I wrapped up another long day, I decided to surprise Emily by meeting her at our favorite restaurant downtown. It was a quaint place with dim lighting and soft jazz playing in the background, the kind of place where we had shared countless intimate dinners before. I parked my car and made my way inside, the anticipation of seeing her smile after a hectic day lifting my spirits. But as I approached our usual table tucked away in a corner, my heart sank. There she was, Emily, sitting across from a man I didn't recognize at first. They were engrossed in conversation, laughing easily as if they were old friends catching up after years apart. I stood there frozen for what felt like an eternity, watching them. My mind raced, trying to make sense of the scene before me. Emily noticed me first, her expression shifting from surprise to something I couldn't quite place. Guilt, perhaps? She introduced me to Dan, her colleague from work. His handshake felt firm, almost too firm, and his smile seemed forced as he greeted me. I forced myself to smile back, my mind reeling with questions I wasn't sure I wanted the answers to. We exchanged pleasantries, but the air was thick with tension. I could feel Emily's gaze on me, searching for any hint of suspicion or accusation in my eyes. As the evening wore on, I tried to ignore the nagging feeling in the pit of my stomach. Emily and Dan's easy banter continued, punctuated by shared laughter and knowing glances. I excused myself to the restroom, needing a moment alone to collect my thoughts. Inside the stall, I pulled out my phone and opened the messages between Emily and me. I scrolled through our recent conversations, searching for any clues that might confirm or dispel my growing suspicion. And that's when I saw it. A message from Emily to Dan, sent earlier that day. It was innocuous on the surface, but something about the tone struck me as off. Too familiar, too intimate for mere colleagues. My hands trembled as I closed the message and took a deep breath. This couldn't be happening. Not to us. Not to Emily and me. When I returned to the table, Emily's smile faltered for a moment before she quickly composed herself. Dan excused himself soon after, citing an early meeting the next day. Emily walked me to my car, her hand slipping into mine, as if to reassure me that everything was okay. But everything was far from okay. That night, lying in bed next to Emily, I couldn't shake the image of her and Dan together at the restaurant. The way they looked at each other, the familiarity in their voices, it all pointed to something more than just a casual friendship. I tossed and turned, my mind racing with questions and doubts. Was I overreacting? Was there a reasonable explanation for what I had witnessed? Or had I been blind to the signs all along? Eventually, exhaustion overtook me, and I drifted into a fitful sleep. But even in my dreams, I couldn't escape the feeling that everything I thought I knew about my marriage was unraveling before my eyes. The next morning, I woke up determined to confront Emily. I needed answers, no matter how painful they might be. Our marriage deserved at least that much. As Emily prepared breakfast in the kitchen, I watched her from the doorway. She hummed softly to herself, seemingly unaware of the turmoil brewing inside me. I took a deep breath and walked up behind her, wrapping my arms around her waist. "Emily," I began, my voice steady despite the storm raging within me. "Can we talk?" She turned to face me, her brow furrowing in concern. "Of course, Jason," she said softly, setting down the spatula she had been using. "What's on your mind?" I took a moment to gather my thoughts, unsure of where to start. "Last night," I finally began, choosing my words carefully. "At the restaurant, with Dan." Emily's eyes widened slightly, and I saw a flicker of unease cross her features before she quickly masked it with a calm facade. "What about it, Jason?" she asked, her voice carefully neutral. I hesitated, unsure of how to proceed. "Who is he to you, Emily?" I asked finally, unable to keep the edge of accusation out of my tone. "He's just a colleague," Emily replied quickly, her eyes avoiding mine. "We were discussing a project we're working on together." I frowned, not entirely convinced by her explanation. It seemed more than that. I pressed gently, my heart sinking as I saw her hesitation. Emily sighed, her shoulders slumping slightly. Jason, please, she began, reaching out to touch my arm. You know how stressful work has been lately? Dan has just been a supportive friend. A supportive friend? I echoed, my voice rising involuntarily. Is that what you call what I saw last night? Tears welled up in Emily's eyes, and for a moment, I saw a glimpse of vulnerability that tore at my heart. Jason, she whispered, her voice trembling. I'm sorry if it seemed like... Like what, Emily? I demanded, my patience wearing thin. Like you're having an affair? Her silence spoke volumes, and in that moment, I knew the truth. The woman I loved, the woman I trusted with my heart, had betrayed me. I pulled away from her touch, my mind reeling with a mixture of anger, hurt, and betrayal. I need some time, I said finally, my voice hoarse with emotion. I need to figure things out. Emily nodded silently, tears streaming down her cheeks. Jason, please, she pleaded, her voice breaking. Don't shut me out. But I couldn't bear to look at her any longer. Without another word, I turned and walked out of the kitchen, leaving Emily standing alone in the silence of our home. As I drove to work that morning, the weight of Emily's betrayal pressed down on me like a suffocating blanket. I replayed the events of last night in my mind, searching for any sign that I had been mistaken. But deep down, I knew the truth. My marriage was hanging by a thread, and I had no idea how, or if, we could ever repair the damage that had been done. Is plana I trebovani, vot vitoraya glava istori. Days turned into weeks, and the ache in my heart hardened into a steely resolve. Sarah's words lingered in my mind like a mantra, urging me to consider the possibility of forgiveness. But forgiveness was a distant shore, and I was still adrift in a sea of anger and betrayal. I immersed myself deeper into my plan for retribution, channeling my pain into meticulous preparation. Every detail mattered, every move calculated to inflict the same anguish I had felt onto Emily. It wasn't just about hurting her. It was about making her understand the depth of my suffering. I continued to cultivate my newfound friendships with Emily's colleagues, subtly probing for information about her and Dan. Gossip flowed freely in the office corridors and over after-work drinks, each morsel adding another piece to the puzzle of Emily's betrayal. One evening at a company happy hour, I struck up a conversation with Lisa, another of Emily's coworkers. Lisa was bubbly and vivacious, her laughter infectious as she regaled me with stories about the office dynamics. I continued to grapple with Emily's unexpected apology in the days that followed our meeting. Her words echoed in my mind, a constant reminder of the emotional turmoil that had consumed our marriage. Part of me wanted to believe her sincerity, to find a path towards reconciliation. Yet another part, wounded and distrustful, held on to the bitterness of betrayal. As I wrestled with my conflicted emotions, my plan for retribution gained momentum. I intensified my efforts to ingratiate myself further into Emily's social circles, cultivating friendships with those who knew her best. Each interaction provided valuable insights, deepening my understanding of Emily's inner turmoil and her fragile attempts to rebuild bridges she had burned. One evening, at a casual gathering hosted by a mutual friend, I found myself in the company of Emily's closest confidant, Rachel. Rachel had been Emily's friend since college, privy to the intricacies of her life in ways that even I had not been. Over glasses of wine and shared laughter, I steered the conversation towards Emily, careful to mask my ulterior motives behind a facade of genuine interest. Rachel's eyes softened with sympathy as she spoke about Emily's struggles in the aftermath of our separation. She's devastated, Jason, Rachel confided, her voice tinged with sadness. She never thought things would end up like this. I nodded slowly, absorbing her words with a mixture of skepticism and begrudging empathy. Do you think she regrets what happened? I asked, my tone carefully neutral. Rachel sighed, setting down her wineglass with a thoughtful expression. I think she does, she admitted quietly. She's made some terrible mistakes, but she's trying to make amends. Her words struck a chord within me, stirring a familiar conflict of emotions. Could I trust Rachel's assessment of Emily's remorse? Or was it another ploy to soften my resolve and pave the way for forgiveness? As the evening wore on, I found myself drawn further into Rachel's circle of friends, each interaction providing new opportunities to gather information and assess Emily's state of mind. The more I learned, the more I struggled to reconcile the woman I once loved with the one who had betrayed me. One afternoon, I received an unexpected call from Emily. Her voice was hesitant, tentative as she asked if we could meet again. Despite my lingering doubts, I agreed to see her, choosing a quiet park near our old neighborhood as the setting for our meeting. When Emily arrived, she looked as fragile as the day we had met at the cafe. Her eyes were swollen with tears, her hands trembling as she sat down beside me on the bench. I studied her carefully, searching for any sign of deception or manipulation. "Jason," Emily began softly, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I want you to know how sorry I am." I remained silent, unwilling to offer her any reassurance or condemnation. Emily took a deep breath, steeling herself against my stony silence. "I've been seeing a therapist," she continued haltingly, "to work through everything that happened. I know it doesn't excuse what I did, but I want to understand why I made such a terrible mistake." Her words pierced through my defenses, stirring a whirlwind of conflicting emotions within me. Could therapy erase the pain of betrayal? Could it mend the shattered pieces of our marriage? "I don't know if I can trust you again, Emily," I admitted finally, my voice raw with emotion. "You broke my trust in the worst possible way." Emily nodded silently, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I understand," she whispered. "I don't expect you to forgive me. Not now, maybe not ever." The weight of her words hung heavy in the air between us, a painful reminder of the irreparable damage that had been done. I struggled to find the right words, to articulate the depths of my anguish and the fragile flicker of hope that still burned within me. "I need time," I said at last, my voice barely audible. "Time to heal, time to figure things out." Emily nodded again, her shoulders sagging with resignation. "I'll give you all the time you need," she promised softly. Without another word, we sat in silence on the park bench, the distance between us a tangible barrier that neither of us dared to breach. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the deserted park as evening settled in around us. As I drove home later that night, the weight of Emily's remorse lingered like a heavy shroud. Could I find it in myself to forgive her? Could I let go of the anger and hurt that had consumed me since that fateful night at the restaurant? One thing was clear. My plan for retribution had taken on a new complexity, fueled not just by anger, but by the fragile glimmer of hope that maybe, just maybe, our love could be salvaged from the wreckage of betrayal. I plunged deeper into my dual existence, the facade of a man grappling with forgiveness and the shadowed architect of a plan for retribution. Emily's remorse echoed through my mind, stirring a tempest of conflicting emotions as I navigated the fragile terrain of our fractured marriage. In the days that followed our park bench encounter, I found myself haunted by memories of happier times, moments when Emily's laughter had filled our home with warmth, when her touch had sparked a fire in my soul. The raw ache of betrayal collided with the flickering hope that perhaps, against all odds, we could rebuild what had been shattered. Yet beneath the surface, my resolve remained unyielding. I continued to gather intelligence through subtle interactions with Emily's acquaintances and colleagues, each encounter a calculated step towards my ultimate goal. The deeper I delved, the clearer the picture became, of Emily's lingering guilt, of her futile attempts to mend what she had irreparably broken. One evening at a charity event organized by Emily's workplace, I found myself face to face with Dan. He stood at the edge of the crowded room, a glass of champagne in hand, his gaze distant yet alert. I approached him cautiously, masking my animosity behind a congenial smile. "Dan," I greeted him casually, extending my hand in a gesture of camaraderie. "Good to see you here." Dan's eyes flickered with surprise, but he accepted my handshake with a forced smile. "Jason, right?" he replied, his tone guarded. I nodded, maintaining my facade of polite indifference. "How have you been?" I asked casually, masking my true intentions beneath a veneer of small talk. Dan hesitated for a moment as if gauging my sincerity. "Busy," he replied vaguely, his eyes narrowing slightly. "And yourself?" "Oh, you know," I replied nonchalantly, taking a sip of my own drink. "Keeping busy with work and all." The conversation drifted to safer topics, the event, the weather, mutual acquaintances, yet beneath the surface, tension simmered like a dormant volcano. Dan's presence reminded me of everything I had lost, everything Emily had willingly cast aside in pursuit of her own desires. As the evening wore on, I found myself drawn into a conversation with Lisa, who had accompanied Dan to the event. Her eyes darted nervously between Dan and me, sensing the unspoken tension that hung in the air. "Jason," Lisa began tentatively, her voice barely above a whisper. "I know things have been difficult between you and Emily." I nodded slowly, my gaze fixed on Dan across the room. "You could say that," I replied evenly, my tone betraying none of the turmoil raging within me. Lisa hesitated, her fingers fidgeting with the stem of her wineglass. "I just want you to know," she continued earnestly, "that Emily is truly sorry for what happened. She's trying to make things right." Her words struck a nerve, stirring a potent mix of anger and resentment within me. "Is that so?" I replied tersely, unable to hide the bitterness in my voice. Lisa nodded fervently, her eyes pleading for understanding. "She's not the same person she was," she insisted. "She's struggling, Jason, and she needs your forgiveness." I scoffed incredulously, shaking my head in disbelief. "Forgiveness," I echoed mockingly. "After everything she did?" Lisa's expression softened, sympathy etched across her features. "I know it's hard," she admitted quietly, "but holding on to anger will only hurt you in the end." Her words resonated with a painful truth, a truth I had been unwilling to confront until now. Could I continue down the path of vengeance, knowing the toll it was taking on my own well-being? Could I find it in myself to forgive Emily, to let go of the festering wounds that had consumed me for so long? As I drove home that night, the weight of Lisa's words bore down on me like a heavy burden. The road stretched out before me, illuminated by the soft glow of streetlights, as I grappled with the tumultuous emotions swirling inside me. One thing was clear. My plan for retribution had brought me to a crossroads, where the choices I made would shape not only my future, but the future of the woman who had once held my heart in her hands. I wrestled with conflicting emotions in the days that followed the charity event. Lisa's words lingered in my mind, her plea for forgiveness echoing like a haunting refrain. Despite my lingering anger and hurt, a part of me couldn't shake the notion that perhaps forgiveness was not just an act of mercy towards Emily, but a path towards my own healing. The next morning, I found myself standing outside Emily's apartment door, my hand poised to knock. Doubt gnawed at me. Was I ready to face her, to confront the woman who had shattered my trust and fractured our marriage? Yet, driven by a mix of curiosity and a desperate need for closure, I rapped my knuckles against the wood. The door swung open slowly, revealing Emily standing before me, her eyes widening with surprise. "Jason," she breathed, her voice barely above a whisper. What are you doing here?" I hesitated for a moment, searching for the right words amidst the whirlwind of emotions swirling inside me. "Can we talk?" I asked finally, my voice hoarse with uncertainty. Emily nodded silently, stepping aside to let me into her apartment. The familiar scent of her perfume washed over me, mingling with the faint aroma of freshly brewed coffee. We stood in awkward silence for a moment, the weight of unspoken words hanging heavy in the air between us. I didn't expect to see you," Emily admitted softly, her eyes downcast. I took a deep breath, steeling myself against the flood of memories threatening to overwhelm me. "I've been thinking," I began slowly, choosing my words with care, "about everything that's happened between us." Emily looked up at me, her expression a mixture of hope and trepidation. "Jason, she started, but I held up a hand to silence her. "I'm not sure if I can ever fully forgive you," I confessed quietly, my gaze fixed on a spot on the floor. "But I realize that holding on to anger isn't helping either of us." Tears welled in Emily's eyes, her lower lip trembling as she struggled to find the right response. I know I hurt you," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion, "more than I can ever say." I nodded slowly, meeting her gaze for the first time since entering her apartment. "I want to understand why," I said finally, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. "Why you did it." Emily took a step closer, reaching out tentatively as if afraid I might retreat. "I was lost," she admitted quietly. "Dan made me feel alive again, in ways that I hadn't felt in a long time." Her words pierced through my defenses, stirring a mix of empathy and lingering resentment. "And what about us?" I asked bitterly, unable to mask the hurt in my voice. What about the life we built together? Emily flinched at my words, her shoulders slumping with remorse. I took it for granted, she admitted softly. I thought it would always be there, no matter what. Silence settled between us once more, punctuated only by the soft ticking of a nearby clock. The enormity of our shared pain hung in the air, a tangible reminder of the fractures that had torn us apart. I don't know if I can ever trust you again, Emily, I said finally, my voice barely above a whisper. But I want to try. Emily's eyes widened with hope, tears streaming down her cheeks unchecked. I'll do whatever it takes, she promised fervently, to earn back your trust, to make things right between us. I nodded slowly, my heart heavy with the weight of uncertainty. I need time, I replied hoarsely. Time to heal, time to rebuild. Emily nodded silently, her gaze never leaving mine. I'll wait, she whispered, her voice filled with a fragile hope. As I turned to leave, the weight of our conversation settled heavily on my shoulders. Could I find it in myself to forgive Emily, to let go of the pain and anger that had consumed me for so long? Or was our marriage irreparably damaged, destined to crumble under the weight of betrayal? One thing was certain. As I walked away from Emily's apartment that day, the road ahead stretched out before me, uncertain yet filled with the possibility of redemption and renewal. With Emily and I attempting to reconcile, a fragile peace settled between us in the ensuing weeks. We cautiously navigated conversations that once brimmed with tension, now tinged with a hesitant hope for the future. Each day felt like a tentative step forward, as we gingerly explored the possibility of salvaging our marriage from the wreckage of betrayal. Emily threw herself into our reconciliation with unwavering determination. She attended therapy sessions regularly, addressing the underlying issues that had driven her into Dan's arms. I, too, grappled with my own emotions, grappling with the inner turmoil that had plagued me since the discovery of her infidelity. One evening, as we sat across from each other at our dining table, the weight of unspoken words hung heavy between us. Emily fidgeted nervously with her napkin, her eyes avoiding mine as she struggled to find the right words. Jason, she began hesitantly, her voice barely above a whisper. I want to talk about what happened, about why I... Her voice trailed off, and I watched her carefully, waiting for her to continue. The silence stretched between us, pregnant with the weight of our shared pain and regret. I don't expect you to forgive me, Emily continued softly, her voice tinged with sorrow. But I need you to know that I am truly sorry, for everything. I studied her intently, searching for any trace of deception or insincerity. Emily met my gaze squarely, her eyes brimming with unshed tears. I've been trying to understand why I made such a terrible mistake, she admitted, her voice cracking with emotion. I've been seeing a therapist, trying to work through my feelings and figure out how I could have hurt you like this. Her words struck a chord within me, stirring a mix of compassion and lingering hurt. Could I accept her apology, knowing the depth of pain she had caused? Could I find it in myself to let go of the anger and betrayal that had consumed me for so long? I'm not sure if I'll ever fully understand, I confessed finally, my voice tinged with uncertainty. But I appreciate that you're trying. Emily nodded solemnly, her shoulders sagging with relief. I know I can't erase what happened, she said quietly. But I want to do everything I can to make things right between us. Her sincerity touched something deep within me, a fragile ember of hope that flickered to life amidst the ruins of our marriage. I want to believe you, I replied honestly, my voice steadier than I expected. But trust, it's going to take time. Emily nodded again, her eyes shining with unshed tears. I understand, she whispered. I'll wait for as long as it takes. In the days that followed, we navigated our fragile truce with cautious optimism. We spent evenings together, sharing meals and tentative conversations that skirted around the edges of our shared pain. Emily's determination to make amends was palpable, her efforts to rebuild our trust evident in every small gesture. Yet, despite her earnest attempts, doubts gnawed at the edges of my resolve. Could I truly forgive Emily for the devastation she had wrought? Could our marriage withstand the scars of betrayal? Or were we merely delaying the inevitable? One evening, as we sat together on the couch, Emily reached out tentatively, her fingers brushing against mine. Jason, she began softly, her voice tinged with uncertainty. Do you think Do you think we can make this work? I hesitated for a moment, torn between the desire for reconciliation and the lingering wounds of the past. I want to believe we can, I replied finally, my voice tinged with sadness. But it's going to take more than words. Emily nodded silently, her gaze fixed on her hands folded in her lap. I know, she whispered. I know I have to earn back your trust. As I looked at her sitting beside me, a mix of emotions swirled within me, love, hurt, and a flicker of hope for our future together. The road ahead remained uncertain, fraught with challenges and obstacles we had yet to face. But as long as Emily was willing to try, perhaps there was a chance, however small, that we could find our way back to each other. The weeks stretched into months as Emily and I tentatively navigated the uncertain waters of reconciliation. Each day brought new challenges and small victories as we grappled with the aftermath of betrayal and the fragile hope of rebuilding our fractured marriage. Emily's efforts to earn back my trust were relentless. She attended therapy sessions diligently, delving into the root causes of her infidelity and grappling with the personal demons that had driven her to betray our vows. Her determination was evident in every apology, every heartfelt gesture aimed at bridging the chasm that had opened between us. For my part, I struggled with conflicting emotions, the lingering hurt and anger juxtaposed against a growing desire to forgive and move forward. Our conversations, once fraught with tension, gradually shifted towards shared memories and tentative plans for the future. One evening, as we sat together on our porch, the sun setting in a blaze of orange and pink hues, Emily broached a topic that had long remained unspoken between us. Jason, she began softly, her voice tinged with uncertainty. Do you think we can ever truly put this behind us? Move past everything that's happened? Her question hung in the air between us, heavy with unspoken implications. I took a deep breath, considering my response carefully. I want to believe we can, I replied slowly, my gaze fixed on the horizon. But trust is fragile, Emily. It's not something that can be easily repaired. Emily nodded solemnly, her eyes reflecting the fading light of the sunset. I know, she murmured. I know I hurt you deeply, and I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make amends. Her words touched a chord within me, stirring a mix of empathy and lingering doubt. Could I let go of the pain and betrayal that had defined our recent past? Could I find it in myself to forgive Emily completely, to embrace a future where our love could endure despite the scars? As the days turned into weeks, Emily's dedication to our reconciliation remained unwavering. She continued to attend therapy, to engage in difficult conversations about our past and our future. Her commitment to transparency and honesty slowly began to thaw the ice around my heart, allowing a glimmer of hope to seep through the cracks. One afternoon, I found myself leafing through old photo albums tucked away in our attic, snapshots of happier times, of vacations shared and milestones celebrated. Each photograph told a story of love and laughter, a testament to the bond we had once shared before it had been fractured by betrayal. Emily joined me in the attic, her footsteps hesitant as she approached. I remember this trip, she murmured softly, her fingers tracing the edge of a photograph. We were so happy then. I nodded silently, my throat tight with unspoken emotion. Memories flooded my mind, of whispered promises and stolen kisses, of dreams shared beneath starlit skies. We can be happy again, Emily said quietly, her voice tinged with hope, if we're willing to fight for it. Her words echoed through the attic, lingering in the air like a promise yet to be fulfilled. Could we reclaim the happiness we had once known? Could our love withstand the trials that had threatened to tear us apart? As I looked at Emily standing beside me, a sense of peace settled over me, a tentative belief that perhaps, against all odds, we could find our way back to each other. The road ahead remained uncertain, fraught with challenges and uncertainties. But as long as we faced them together, there was hope, fragile, yet resilient, that our love could endure. As weeks turned into months, Emily and I continued our delicate dance of reconciliation. The wounds of betrayal slowly began to heal, replaced by a cautious optimism as we worked towards rebuilding our marriage. Therapy sessions became a regular fixture in our lives, providing a safe space for us to confront the painful truths that had driven us apart. Emily's commitment to self-reflection and growth was evident in every session, her willingness to delve into the complexities of her actions a testament to her determination to make amends. Our conversations deepened, moving beyond the surface-level exchanges to explore the deeper intricacies of our relationship. We spoke of our hopes and fears, of the dreams we had once shared, and the scars that now marked our journey together. One evening, as we sat together in our living room, the soft glow of candlelight casting flickering shadows on the walls, Emily broached a topic that had long been on her mind. "Jason," she began softly, her voice tinged with vulnerability, "I've been thinking about us, about our future." I turned to look at her, captivated by the sincerity in her eyes. "What about our future?" I asked cautiously, unsure of where her thoughts might lead. Emily took a deep breath, her fingers twisting nervously in her lap. "I know I hurt you deeply," she started, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "And I understand if you still have doubts about whether we can move past this." Her honesty struck a chord within me, stirring a mix of admiration and lingering pain. "It's not easy," I admitted quietly, my gaze fixed on hers. "But I want to believe that we can." Emily nodded slowly, her expression one of relief mingled with apprehension. "I want that too," she confessed earnestly. "I want to rebuild what we had, to earn back your trust and to make things right between us." Her words resonated with me, a poignant reminder of the depth of her remorse and her unwavering commitment to our marriage. Could I let go of the past and embrace a future with Emily? Could our love withstand the trials that had threatened to tear us apart? In the days that followed, we embarked on a journey of rediscovery, of ourselves and of each other. We sought out new experiences together, creating memories that were not tainted by the shadows of our past mistakes. One weekend, we took a spontaneous road trip to a quaint seaside town we had visited early in our relationship. The salty breeze brushed against our faces as we strolled along the boardwalk, hand in hand, laughter ringing out like a melody of hope. "I never thought we'd come back here," Emily admitted softly, her eyes scanning the familiar sights with a mix of nostalgia and newfound appreciation. I squeezed her hand gently, a smile tugging at the corners of my lips. "Me neither," I replied honestly, my heart swelling with gratitude for the second chance we had been given. As we sat together on a weathered bench overlooking the ocean, the sun dipping below the horizon in a blaze of crimson and gold, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. The road ahead remained uncertain, fraught with challenges and uncertainties, but as long as Emily and I faced them together, there was hope, fragile yet resilient, that our love could endure. I struggled with conflicting emotions as Emily and I continued to navigate the delicate path of rebuilding our marriage. Despite the progress we had made, doubts lingered in the recesses of my mind, a constant reminder of the pain and betrayal that had once threatened to tear us apart. Emily's efforts to earn back my trust were relentless. She immersed herself in therapy, exploring the root causes of her infidelity with a determination that both impressed and unnerved me. Her sincerity was evident in every conversation, every heartfelt gesture aimed at repairing the damage she had wrought. Yet, despite her earnest attempts, a part of me remained guarded, wary of the possibility of history repeating itself, of trusting too easily and being hurt once more. The wounds of betrayal ran deep, leaving scars that refused to fade even in the face of Emily's unwavering commitment to change. One evening, as we sat together in our living room, the warmth of the fireplace casting dancing shadows across the walls, Emily broached a topic that had long been left unspoken between us. "Jason," she began tentatively, her voice tinged with apprehension, "I've been thinking about what happened, about why I did it." I turned to look at her, my heart clenching at the vulnerability in her eyes. "Go on," I prompted softly, unsure of where her thoughts might lead. Emily took a deep breath, her hands twisting nervously in her lap. "I was lost," she admitted slowly, her gaze fixed on her trembling fingers. "Dan made me feel alive again, in ways that I hadn't felt in a long time." Her words pierced through me, stirring a mix of sympathy and lingering hurt. "And us?" I asked quietly, my voice tinged with sadness. "What about the life we had built together?" Emily looked up at me, tears shimmering in her eyes. "I took it for granted," she confessed softly. I thought it would always be there, no matter what." Silence settled between us, heavy with the weight of unspoken regrets and shattered illusions. Could I find it in myself to forgive Emily completely? To let go of the resentment that had festered within me since the revelation of her betrayal? Could our love survive the scars that marked our shared history? In the days that followed, Emily's determination to make amends remained undiminished. She sought out new ways to demonstrate her commitment to our marriage, from heartfelt apologies to thoughtful gestures that spoke volumes about her desire for reconciliation. One afternoon, as we sat together in a quiet corner of our favorite coffee shop, Emily placed a worn journal on the table between us. "I've been keeping this," she explained softly, her fingers tracing the embossed cover. "It's my way of trying to understand myself better, to make sense of everything that happened." I reached out tentatively, running my fingers over the smooth leather. "May I?" I asked quietly, meeting her gaze with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. Emily nodded silently, her expression a mixture of hope and trepidation. As I flipped through the pages, I found myself immersed in Emily's innermost thoughts, her struggles, her doubts, and her unwavering determination to confront her demons and emerge stronger. "It's not easy," Emily admitted quietly, her voice tinged with vulnerability, "but I'm committed to doing whatever it takes to make things right between us." Her words struck a chord within me, stirring a mix of admiration and uncertainty. Could I find it in myself to forgive Emily completely, to embrace a future where our love could endure despite the scars of betrayal? Could our marriage withstand the trials that had threatened to tear us apart? As I looked at Emily sitting across from me, her eyes filled with unshed tears, yet brimming with hope, I realized that the answer lay not in the pain of the past, but in the possibilities of the future. The road ahead remained uncertain, fraught with challenges and uncertainties. But as long as we faced them together, there was hope, fragile yet resilient, that our love could withstand the test of time. The days blurred together as Emily and I navigated the complexities of our renewed relationship. With each passing week, our conversations delved deeper into the heart of our marriage, probing the wounds of the past while cautiously embracing the possibility of a future together. Therapy sessions had become a cornerstone of our journey towards reconciliation. Emily's commitment to self-reflection and personal growth never wavered, and I found solace in her unwavering determination to confront her own shortcomings and rebuild the trust she had shattered. Yet despite the progress we had made, doubts still lingered in the shadows of my mind. Could I truly forgive Emily for her betrayal? Could I let go of the hurt and anger that had defined our relationship for so long? One evening, as we sat together on our porch, the gentle hum of cicadas filling the air, Emily broached a topic that had been weighing heavily on her heart. "Jason," she began softly, her voice tinged with apprehension, "I know I hurt you deeply, and I don't expect you to forget what happened, but I want you to know that I am committed to making things right between us." I looked at her, searching her eyes for any trace of deceit or uncertainty. Emily met my gaze with a mixture of remorse and determination, her vulnerability a stark reminder of the depth of her regret. "I believe you," I replied finally, my voice tinged with sadness. "But trust, it's something that can't be forced or rushed." Emily nodded solemnly, her shoulders sagging with the weight of her own guilt. "I understand," she whispered, "and I'll do whatever it takes to earn back your trust." In the weeks that followed, Emily's actions spoke louder than words. She continued to attend therapy, delving deeper into the underlying issues that had driven her into the arms of another. Her transparency and honesty became pillars upon which our fragile reconciliation rested, each day a step towards healing the wounds of the past. One afternoon, Emily surprised me with a spontaneous trip to a nearby hiking trail we had visited early in our relationship. The crisp autumn air filled our lungs as we walked side by side, the crunch of fallen leaves beneath our feet a soothing backdrop to our shared silence. As we reached a clearing overlooking a breathtaking vista of rolling hills and distant mountains, Emily turned to me with a hesitant smile. "Do you remember the first time we came here?" she asked softly, her eyes searching mine for recognition. I nodded, a flicker of nostalgia stirring within me. "It feels like a lifetime ago," I admitted quietly, my heart heavy with the weight of memories both bitter and sweet. Emily took a step closer, her hand reaching out tentatively to touch mine. "I want us to make new memories," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. "Ones that aren't tainted by the mistakes of the past." Her words resonated deep within me, stirring a mix of hope and uncertainty. Could we truly move forward, leaving behind the shadows that had threatened to consume us? Could our love withstand the trials that had tested it so mercilessly? As I looked at Emily standing beside me, her eyes bright with determination and vulnerability, I felt a flicker of hope ignite within me. The road ahead remained uncertain, fraught with challenges and uncertainties, but as long as we faced them together, there was a chance, however fragile, that our love could endure. The crispness of winter had settled over our town, blanketing the familiar streets and houses in a quiet hush. Emily and I had settled into a routine of sorts, each day a delicate balance of rebuilding our marriage and confronting the ghosts of our past. Therapy had become a staple in our lives, providing a structured space where Emily continued to delve into the complexities of her actions and motivations. Her commitment to self-reflection and growth remained unwavering, and I found solace in her earnest efforts to mend the fractures in our relationship. Yet, despite the progress we had made, doubts still lingered beneath the surface. The wounds of betrayal, though healing, left behind scars that prickled with every reminder of what had transpired between us. One evening, as we sat together by the fireplace, the crackling of burning logs punctuating our shared silence, Emily broached a topic that had been weighing heavily on her mind. "Jason," she began softly, her voice tinged with uncertainty, "do you ever think about what could have been different? About how things might have turned out if I hadn't—" Her words faltered, and I reached out to take her hand in mine, offering a silent reassurance that she could continue. Emily took a deep breath, her gaze fixed on the flickering flames. "If I hadn't made that mistake," she finished quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. I nodded slowly, my own thoughts swirling with a mix of empathy and lingering hurt. "I think about it sometimes," I admitted, my voice tinged with sadness. "But what's done is done. All we can do now is focus on moving forward." Emily squeezed my hand gently, a faint smile playing on her lips. "I know," she murmured, "and I'm grateful for the chance to try and make things right between us." In the days that followed, Emily's determination to rebuild our marriage only grew stronger. She sought out new ways to demonstrate her commitment, from heartfelt gestures to thoughtful conversations that explored the depths of our shared experiences. One afternoon, Emily surprised me with tickets to a concert by a band we had both loved in our early years together. The music filled the air with a nostalgic melody, weaving through the crowd as we stood shoulder to shoulder, lost in the rhythm of the songs that had once been the soundtrack to our lives. As the final notes faded into the night, Emily turned to me with a shy smile. "Thank you for coming with me," she said softly, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "For giving us another chance." I reached out to brush a stray lock of hair from her face, my heart heavy with the weight of unspoken emotions. "We both deserve a chance at happiness," I replied quietly, my voice thick with emotion. Emily nodded, her fingers intertwining with mine. "I believe that too," she whispered, her breath warm against my cheek. "And I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make it happen." Her words echoed through the quiet of the night, carrying with them a fragile hope that perhaps, against all odds, our love could endure. The road ahead remained uncertain, fraught with challenges and uncertainties, but as long as Emily and I faced them together, there was a chance, however fragile, that we could find our way back to each other. The months passed with a sense of fragile peace settling between Emily and me. Our days were filled with tentative steps towards rebuilding what had been broken, each moment a delicate balance of healing and uncertainty. Therapy sessions had become a regular fixture in our lives, providing a structured environment where Emily continued to confront the complexities of her actions and the underlying issues that had contributed to her infidelity. Her dedication to self-reflection remained unwavering, a beacon of hope amidst the shadows of doubt that still lingered within me. Despite our progress, there were moments when the weight of our shared past threatened to pull us back into the darkness. Late one evening, as we sat together in our study, the soft glow of lamplight casting gentle shadows across the room, Emily broached a topic that had long been left unspoken between us. "Jason," she began softly, her voice tinged with vulnerability, "I've been thinking a lot about forgiveness, about whether I'll ever truly earn yours." Her words hung in the air between us, heavy with the weight of unspoken fears and longing. I looked at her, my heart aching with the complexity of emotions her confession stirred within me. "It's not just about forgiveness," I replied finally, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. It's about trust and rebuilding what was broken. Emily nodded slowly, her fingers tracing patterns on the arm of her chair. I know, she murmured, and I understand that it's something I have to earn, day by day. In the days that followed, Emily's determination to prove herself only grew stronger. She sought out new ways to demonstrate her commitment, from heartfelt apologies to small acts of kindness that spoke volumes about her desire for reconciliation. One afternoon, Emily surprised me with a handwritten letter tucked beneath my pillow. Her words were a tapestry of remorse and hope, a testament to the depth of her regret and her unwavering determination to make amends. I know I can't erase the past, she had written, her handwriting shaky yet sincere. But I promise to spend every day proving to you that I am worthy of your love and trust. Her words touched something deep within me, stirring a mix of empathy and uncertainty. Could I find it in myself to fully forgive Emily, to let go of the pain and anger that had defined our relationship for so long? Could our love withstand the trials that had tested it so mercilessly? As I looked at Emily sleeping peacefully beside me, her face softened by the light of dawn filtering through the curtains, I felt a flicker of hope ignite within me. The road ahead remained uncertain, fraught with challenges and uncertainties, but as long as we faced them together, there was a chance, however fragile, that our love could endure. I stared out at the tranquil lake, its surface shimmering under the late afternoon sun. Emily and I had taken refuge at the secluded spot, a sanctuary away from the bustle of daily life, where we could reflect on the journey that had brought us to this fragile moment of peace. The therapy sessions had continued to be a lifeline for us, providing a safe space for Emily to delve deeper into her inner turmoil and for me to navigate the tumultuous emotions that still simmered beneath the surface. Each session brought us closer to understanding the complexities of forgiveness and the intricate threads that bound us together, despite the fractures. As we sat together on the weathered wooden bench, Emily reached out to take my hand, her touch warm against my skin. "Thank you for being here with me," she murmured softly, her eyes reflecting a mix of gratitude and apprehension. I squeezed her hand gently, my gaze lingering on her face, searching for the words that had eluded me for so long. "I want to believe in us," I confessed quietly, the weight of my uncertainty hanging heavy in the air between us. Emily nodded, her fingers tightening around mine. "I understand," she whispered, "and I'm willing to keep trying, for as long as it takes." Her sincerity pierced through the layers of doubt that had clouded my heart, stirring a glimmer of hope within me. Could we truly move beyond the pain and betrayal that had once threatened to tear us apart? Could our love withstand the trials that had tested it so mercilessly? In the days that followed, Emily's commitment to our marriage remained unwavering. She sought out new ways to bridge the gap between us, from heartfelt conversations that laid bare our deepest fears to spontaneous gestures that spoke volumes about her desire for reconciliation. One evening, as we sat together in our living room, the soft glow of candlelight casting dancing shadows across the walls, Emily handed me a carefully wrapped package. "I found this," she explained softly, her voice tinged with nervousness. "It's something I hope will help us move forward." I unwrapped the package slowly, my heart quickening with anticipation. Inside was a leather-bound journal, its pages pristine and waiting to be filled. Emily smiled hesitantly as she watched my reaction, her eyes searching mine for any sign of acceptance. "It's for us," she explained quietly. "A place where we can write about our thoughts, our hopes, everything." Her gesture touched something deep within me, a reminder of her unwavering dedication to our shared future. Could this journal be a conduit for healing? A canvas where we could paint a new beginning free from the shadows of our past? As I flipped through the blank pages, my fingers tracing the smooth surface, I felt a flicker of optimism stir within me. The road ahead remained uncertain, fraught with challenges and uncertainties, but as long as Emily and I faced them together, there was hope, fragile yet resilient, that our love could endure. The warm rays of the morning sun filtered through the curtains, casting a soft glow over the bedroom where Emily and I lay intertwined in a peaceful embrace. It had been a long journey filled with ups and downs, but in this quiet moment, there was a sense of serenity that we had not felt in a long time. As I gazed at Emily's sleeping form beside me, A surge of gratitude washed over me. Despite the challenges we had faced, we had persevered. The therapy sessions had become less frequent as we gradually found our rhythm, navigating our way through the complexities of forgiveness and rebuilding trust. One morning, over a leisurely breakfast in our kitchen, Emily broached a topic that had been on her mind for weeks. "Jason," she began hesitantly, her eyes searching mine for any sign of resistance. "I've been thinking about us." I set down my coffee mug, my curiosity piqued by the seriousness in her voice. "What about us?" I asked gently, my heart bracing for whatever revelation she was about to share. Emily took a deep breath, her hands fidgeting nervously in her lap. "I want to make things right between us," she admitted, her voice tinged with vulnerability. "But I also want to make things right for myself, to find a way to forgive myself for what I've done." Her words hung in the air between us, heavy with the weight of her guilt and remorse. I reached across the table to take her hand in mine, offering her a silent reassurance that she could continue. "I've been seeing a therapist on my own," Emily continued quietly, her gaze fixed on our intertwined fingers, "to work through my own issues, separate from us." I listened intently, my heart swelling with pride at her courage to confront her demons head-on. "That's a big step," I acknowledged softly, squeezing her hand gently. "I'm proud of you for taking it." Emily nodded, a faint smile tugging at the corners of her lips. "I want you to know that I'm committed to this journey," she affirmed, her eyes meeting mine with unwavering determination. "To becoming the person you deserve, and finding peace within myself." Her sincerity washed over me, thawing the last vestiges of doubt that had lingered in my heart. Could I fully forgive Emily for her betrayal? Could we truly move forward, stronger and more resilient than before? In the weeks that followed, Emily's dedication to her personal growth became a beacon of hope for our future together. She continued her individual therapy sessions, delving deeper into the roots of her actions and the emotional wounds that had fueled them. One evening, as we sat together on our porch beneath the starlit sky, Emily turned to me with a quiet intensity in her eyes. "Thank you for believing in me," she whispered, her voice filled with a mixture of gratitude and awe. I reached out to brush a stray lock of hair from her face, my heart overflowing with love for this woman who had fought so hard to reclaim both herself and our relationship. "I believe in us," I replied sincerely, my voice carrying the weight of my conviction. Emily leaned into my touch, her fingers curling around mine as if anchoring herself to our shared future. "I do too," she murmured softly, her breath warm against my cheek, "and I'm ready to keep fighting for it, every step of the way." As we sat together in the quiet embrace of the night, surrounded by the echoes of our shared journey, I felt a renewed sense of hope bloom within me. The road ahead would undoubtedly be challenging, marked by moments of doubt and uncertainty. But as long as Emily and I faced them together, there was a certainty, strong and unwavering, that our love would endure.